For this screencast, we're going to focus on taking content from InDesign and putting it into iBooks Author. And for this particular screencast, I'm focusing on our recipe book. And you'll see that there are some issues before we move away from InDesign. We're going to have a look at a few things that just will affect the way that the content gets placed into iBooks Author. The first thing is, you'll see I've got my book here and I've got my one of the recipes open. I haven't finished all the work that I'm doing on this yet before I take it, but let's just look at another recipe, and you'll see that in this particular recipe I've still got showing the header and the footer. Well, in fact, it's a good idea to get rid of these temporarily before we take this content from here to iBooks Author, because iBooks Author doesn't need the footer and the header, as you'll see in a moment. So to keep things simple, we're going to move this away, and the way that I'm doing it is, if I go to my layers, you'll see that I've got the layers, I have got my footer and my header are actually in this red layer here. So I'm just going to turn that off in each case. So let's actually just save that. I'll just make sure that I'm doing it for each one like this, just turning off the layers. And this is a good idea to use layers, because we can just temporarily remove it, because when we export this ready to put into iBooks Author, you'll find that anything that's on the layers the hidden layers will not be brought in. Okay, that's the first thing. Now the other thing is, this particular example that I'm using is very, very simple, because I've simply got if you like, a chapter, or a recipe is a chapter. So here we have the first chapter, second chapter, etc. And I'm not planning to use different sections within iBooks Author. I'm simply going to put each one of these into a new chapter. Now, there are two different ways of doing this. We can either simply go to every one of these recipes, this one, let's just take a look at this one, and export this as an IDML file. That's an InDesign markup file. Now this means that we can then import this into our, put it into here, we can import this into our iBooks Author file. However, it's worth noting that if we in fact create a print package, if we package this whole thing for print, don't worry about these various elements here, but the point about this is that this will actually export everything as IDML as well. So I'm just going to call this ready for IBA, which is iBooks Author. I'm putting it inside there. Now you'll notice down here it says include IDML. Don't worry about all the rest of it. We don't really need the rest of it, particularly in this particular example. But if you've already made a print ready package for your InDesign work, then you can use that. The only thing, as I would say, is there are a number of things that you might want to remove, such as the footers and the headers, in other words the page numbering and the running headers. If you remove these, then you'll find that this is going to be a lot simpler. Don't worry about that. We've got some overset text, but that's not going to be a problem for us. Right, so now it's time to have a look at iBooks Author, and I've simply opened a template that I'm constructing at the moment. So this is a template, as you can see. I've got one chapter, which is a sort of placeholder chapter. If we want to make adjustments to our template, we do this through the Layouts panel, which is very similar to the master pages in InDesign. So if we just pull this down here from where we have the book, where it says book, you'll see that I've got some very simple template pages. Because my own recipe book is very simple, it just simply has what one recipe effectively is one chapter of the book. So all I'm really interested in is a chapter. So here we have the one single page that will be devoted to the chapter heading, or the recipe title if you like, with one picture. Now this picture here is a placeholder picture. If I just select that picture, as you can see, and then go to Format, Advanced, this is defined as a media placeholder. In other words, I can change this for each recipe. I also have then one single page to go with the chapter. This obviously will be repeated if I have more than one page, but simply put, I have here the chapter, whatever that recipe is, will be automatically placed at the top. So these are various images. I've got an image there, which again you can change. It looks like I need to expand that very slightly to bring it to the top, like this. And also then I have I have a two column, effectively a two column layout, and I can maybe make adjustments to this. I think I want to bring this down slightly, so you'll see that I have these very handy little lines which tell me that things are lined up. So there we have our two columns of text with the page number at the bottom. Apply these changes to the template. I can move this back up here, and now I'm going to save this as a template. So saving it as a template means that it goes into my templates section. So I've already done this once, obviously, so I'm going to overwrite the one that I had previously. And now what I need to do is to, with this now untitled document, so we've made the template, but now we've effectively opened the template. So I'm going to save this now as my new book, which I'm putting into the same location that I have all of my InDesign documents, which is, just have a quick dig in here. So it's within here. So here I have all of the IDML files ready to be put in. So I'm now going to save this. Now it's very important that you do save it before you start putting content in, because otherwise the relationship between the content and the book will be broken. Okay, so now we have our as yet empty book. I'm now going to place into here, or insert, I should say, insert chapters from IDML file. I'm going to start off with the first one, which is recipe 1. Here we are. Now I'm bringing in the paragraph and the character styles. I'm bringing in all the media and the graphics, and I'm simply bringing it into the chapter. Okay, so as you can see, we've started off with a first chapter. I need to get rid of the previously generated one in the template, and now put this text here, as you can see, comes from this text over here in the panel, and I need to change this to whatever the recipe is. So our recipe is this, so I'm going to copy this and put this into the title for this page, or this chapter. So as you can see, it automatically puts it into there. It automatically puts it into the header, and now I can actually remove this from here, because I don't need this at all. Let's just delete that back there. Now this image here, I'm just going to move this out of the way. You'll see one of the anomalies that we have with this relationship between InDesign and iBooks Author is that it always seems to put a text frame around the image which you're left with. So you need to delete this. So now we have one single image, and I also need to now change this image into my my new image for this particular recipe. So I can do this by simply inserting an image. So if I go to my panel here, I've got somewhere here another image, so we can just place that into there like that. Now, there are various other elements that we want to change. We want to change the styles of various things. For example, this style here that we see on this page here, this has come in from InDesign, and it's my first subhead. Now, first subhead, if I go to my, just bring that closer onto the screen, this is my inspector, and I've just opened up the text panel. Now you'll see, the text inspector I should say, you'll see that down here, if I go to more, it's telling me that this paragraph starts on a new page. So that's why it's put it onto a new page. Now we need to make that change so that we simply now have one page displaying after the chapter heading. So if I just reduce the size of this down so you can see what's actually happening here, and we can delete this empty page, you'll see that we now have one page after the chapter page. So it's really a question of what you want to do with your content now. We can of course add pages, we can add content, we can also change the styles, because the styles currently might need to be, the sizes might need to be increased and so forth. But rather than do that here, we should first of all bring in all of the content, because once we start to modify the styles, then all of those styles will be overwritten again each time we bring in a new chapter. So it's better really for us to bring in all of the chapters. Let's just do one more just to show you how this works. So again, I've selected this chapter. I'm now going to go to insert chapters from IDML file, and now we're going to pick up recipe number 2. We want to bring exactly the same. We want to keep all of the paragraph and styles and so forth. Bring that into the chapter. This now is my second chapter, which of course is Moussaka. So I can just simply copy that from that. Put this into the heading. This then automatically generates the title there, and also in the top. Once again, we can actually move this around. You'll find that there is behind an unnecessary object, so we can actually delete that. Let's just backspace this and get rid of this, because we don't need two titles, and we can move these things around as we like. This again is our where we actually have the page starting, in my particular case, on the new page. So I'm going to get rid of that, and rather than make any further changes to the styles, I'm simply going to go in now and bring in all of the other chapters. But there are various other things that we need to do, of course, before we get the ebook out of this, and we also need to add further content. But that's the basic idea of going from InDesign to our iBooks author.